Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Joined today, he's a two-time U.S. national champion, Pan American gold medalist, mountain bike athlete, and entrepreneur. It's Jeremiah Bishop. How you doing today, Jeremiah?
Hey, Alex, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Yeah, it's really been a wild ride, and I've learned a lot, from when I started as a bike racer and now doing a bunch of other neat projects. It's been super cool.
We're so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what you like doing growing up.
Well, I'm from Harrisonburg, Virginia now, and I've lived here for the last 25 years, so the bulk of my, professional career. But I grew up in Baltimore County, Maryland, in a welfare family, single mom, three kids, surrounded by crazy influences. I mean, there are kids in our neighborhood, like, getting in all kinds of trouble. I got in a little bit of trouble too as a kid. But we sort of found, yeah, that there were like paths that you could choose, and I started to gravitate towards some of the kids that like to do creative things, and building bikes and putting bikes together. That was one of our hobbies, and playing Dungeons and Dragons was another hobby, and playing sports. We play like tag football, we play flag football, we play badminton, basketball, soccer, everything you can imagine. And I always felt like as long as we were busy doing something and we had a goal, like when we were doing sports, we never got in trouble. And it was really amazing. I remember the day quite clearly. A friend of mine got a new red mountain bike, like brand new from the shop, this Trek mountain bike. And I'd ridden some clunky bikes, and I had a BMX bike, and it was pretty good riding. But I hopped on this thing, and it had all these gears and these amazing brakes. And there's a steep hill you could never ride up it in my backyard with a normal bike, but it had these knobby tires, and dropped it down to the lowest gear, and you could just spin and just crank all the way up it like a roller coaster. My eyes just lit up. And I was like, what could I ride with this? And it was like this spark. Like, I don't know. I mean, it must have been just like when someone first discovered gunpowder, it's like, yeah, okay, okay. So I started to find some steps. I rode down the biggest, steepest trail, that we would run down, and over some roots, and you just start to see what you can get away with. And if that's not just been like full circle to seeing what we can get away with, here like 30 years later, it's like, it's awesome. It's awesome. And I am really, really lucky to be able to take a passion and turn it into a career. And I say lucky, I mean, I guess it's just a gratitude thing, right? I'm feel really a lot of gratitude for that. But luck is probably not the word. I was freaking obsessed. I mean, some of my friends, like, yeah, I remember when you were, 18, you would call me at like 11 o'clock at night to go riding. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, I literally would call my friends. I would ride before school. I would ride after school. I would ride after dinner, like finish homework. Okay, we're going to go ride under the lights, drop some stairs. Like, it did not matter the time of day. I was obsessed. And I think that just like that drive and that obsession, was me kind of channeling my ADD. Maybe it was also me running away from some of the childhood like bullshit I had to deal with, but regardless, that drive is the most important feature to, I think, when people succeed. And they will find something that they're good at if they keep going, and they have that drive and that zeal for, like, for doing it, honestly. I mean, Alex, how many podcasts have you done?
A lot. Oh, over 200 now.
It's awesome. And I think that, speaks to why a lot of people quit, because they don't actually like it.
Yeah.
A lot of people they're doing it for an ulterior motive or an end, or, I'm going to win that race and I'm going to make some money, and then I'm going to like cash out. Now, those are the people that had quit a long time ago.
Mhm.
I'm really very fortunate to like, yeah, I just dig it. I mean, I love it. And if given like, if I won the lottery, I was just kind of telling my friend, is like, if I won the lottery, what would I do? I'd probably do big ass adventures on my bike and travel with my
Yep.
friends and go and try to see what kind of dumb stuff we can get ourselves into. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
When you were doing those kind of daredevil, like with stairs and stuff, did it ever feel dangerous, or did you kind of like that thrill of, you mentioned how you kind of see how far could you take it? Did it ever get dangerous injuries from that perspective?
Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of injuries. I mean, when I was a kid, it's always like some crashes or skinned elbow or like I really was very lucky for a long time. And that actually helped me develop some very, very good skills. Like I was a very fast descender, pretty fearless descender. And I won a lot of races. But then I also sometimes pushed it a little too far. In Costa Rica, I crashed and had a complete maxillary fracture. That's when you have a fracture here, I had a fracture up to the orbital lobe. Um, it was bad. It was a bad crash. I had surgery in Costa Rica. It was very scary. But they fixed my teeth up pretty good. Double fake teeth in the front. I don't look too messed up. I'm just as ugly as I was before. So that's
Oh,
fine. Yeah. So it was like that was a real reality check. And I had like PTSD. I mean, you crash on your face that
yeah.
hard and you get facial surgery and like, it was just quite an experience. I remember going to the clinic in Turrialba, which is a small village at the base of this volcano. I mean, it sounds like something out of a book, but it's seriously, I'm riding down a volcano in stage 2 of a 3-stage race across Costa Rica called La Ruta de los Conquistadores. And really, yeah, I was really lucky to find one of the guys that was working there, helped escort me to the hospital, helped clean the blood off before they looked at me. If it was in the US, there would have been a very different protocol. They would have me on a backboard and like rolled me into an emergency room and clean me up. But there it's like, yeah, while you're waiting, go clean up your wounds. I had a big flap of my elbow hanging off. And yeah, this guy got in the shower with me and was like helping clean me up. It was really awesome of him. And but yeah, I got my face stitched while I was awake. I had like cut all the way around. My ear was cut in half. Lip was cut like, and they used the old, the black cat gut stitches, to like sew me up. I mean, they're literally holding me down while they're putting a needle like up here underneath my eye, like to sew my face back together. It was like a tool video. It was just the most savage, gnarliest thing I've ever been through. Well, they checked me out a little later, said, okay, we don't think you have a concussion. They don't have a CAT scan there. It's like, it's old school medicine. And, I felt like there was something wrong. They didn't diagnose the maxillary fracture, but I pushed up on my tongue and I could feel my palate moving. And I was like, I better get checked out at the main hospital. So we drove over the mountains, over the bumps, over the potholes. I mean, my face is shaking in extreme pain. And then I get to the clinic there and they did x-rays, maxillary fracture. The surgeon did all of his study in LA. He was a really good surgeon. And yeah, it would cost like 25% of the cost to do it in the US. And they get a lot of US people and Canadians fly there to get cosmetic surgery. So he's also an experienced cosmetic surgeon. And they're like, all right, well, we're going to redo your stitches too, because you're going to have all kinds of scars if they leave it like that. And they sewed me back up, and I was there for a couple days. That was a bad one. That was probably my worst crash. A couple other bones, like ischial tuberosity, not the, what was it called? The spinous process of my low back, fracture of my upper back falling over the handlebars in Canada, couple broken fingers, stuff like that. Left ACL, tailbone. Yeah, so a few crashes, but as I was saying to a guy in a race was asking about injuries just this last week, and I was like, I also have finished close to 1,300 races.
Mhm.
So yeah, there are significant injuries, but I've also won the 100-mile national series, set the fastest American time at Leadville 100, Pan American Games gold medal, 15-time member of the U.S. national team, raced stage races all over the world. I've won races in Europe, South Africa. I mean, it's been really, really cool. It's been really quite wild. But the successes, you have to have failure to get to the success, and you have to have, setbacks. It's just part of the process.
Was mountain biking the main goal that you had for a career path? Or was there ever that, when we're asked that dream job of ours, that you wanted to go in a different route?
No, dream job was be a mountain bike racer at a professional level. And yeah, it's been pretty cool. I look kind of around at the trophies that I have, and I didn't win the Olympics. I got very, very close to going to the Olympics in Athens. I was the first alternate, but instead of a 3-person team, they had a 2-person team that year. And yeah, it was actually the basis for a film called Off Road to Athens. You can look it up on IMDb. It's kind of hard to find, but if anybody wants a DVD, just send me a message. I'll get one. Because I know the producer lives down the street, good friend of mine. But yeah, really, really cool experience. I was a rookie. And so, yeah, I've ridden at a very, very high level, 8th at World Championships. I was 4th at the Olympic test event in London prior to the Olympics. So I definitely smashed it, and I'm very proud of the racing that I've done and the work that I've put in, and just as proud of the way I've done it. I think there's a style at which you can do your career, and some people will take shortcuts and they're jerks, take drugs. And I did the contrary. I had to suck it up and watch people who are doping beat me, and get the big contract while I get like the scraps. And I had a chip on my shoulder about that for a while. I'm like, this is obviously really frustrating, if you're like doing it right, you're making the sacrifices, you're eating the broccoli and the chicken and, no dessert, and trying to just be super on point for every gain, training so hard, so dedicated, getting there early, practicing, and then someone's like just completely erasing any effort or any gain that you have, and taking drugs to get there. Yeah, that was a tough thing for me to digest. And it became a kind of negative thing for me, really affected my attitude, and I was kind of like bitter about it, or frustrated with it at least. And I realized that that's only self-inflicting at the end. And now that all those guys have retired, and I'm, looking back at my career, or the most of my career, I still have some fun stuff I do, but, sort of like the golden years of like going out and just destroying like top riders in the world, like that, those years I did it right and I did it clean. I'm very proud of my efforts, and I can look back on them and go, I did that 100%. Yep. There was no question if it was the drugs or if it was, if that made any factor in it. And so, yeah, it's a tough career. You can make a living doing it. You have to be one of the best in America for sure, and among the best in the world. But now, it's kind of changed, and being able to evolve against those changes has also been a pretty big piece of the puzzle. So for me, like, as the races evolved and I was doing cross-country distance races for the first part of my career, sort of like that 90-minute races you see on Red Bull TV, and then transitioned to doing the ultra endurance stuff, the stage races, 100-mile races. And that stuff's really, really fun, really adventurous. A lot more adventure travel style mountain biking is kind of what you think of when you think of, hey, let's go ride over a couple mountains. But then I also got into this content creation thing, and social media is a really democratizing platform now, because if you put something up on YouTube and people like it, it doesn't care if the studio doesn't want people to see it. You have audience all of a sudden. And it's fascinating to see YouTube in particular, podcasts, whether it be Strava or Instagram or Facebook, all of these platforms, they have the power to reach millions of people. I mean, there can be, I was doing like this during COVID. I would do this like Tuesday morning coffee chat, and I'm just like talking to people, like I'm talking to you, Alex, just like for chatting and social. And there's like a couple fans in like Malaysia. I've sent them stickers and stuff, and they're super into it. It's just like really wild. It's like the world becomes a small place with technology.
Do you feel, do you feel with the content creation where you are at your career, it's a great way to be able to still reminisce on the good times and the experiences you had, but help maybe influence a new generation of mountain bike racers and riders and athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, I haven't, if you look at my Facebook or Instagram, I don't like put these flashback photos of test event at London, or here's me doing this 10 years ago. Like, I don't know. I've never been that way. And I don't rest on my laurels. Like when you introed me, I was just like, whoa, I did that. It's kind of like still, I don't know. I just compartmentalize it, because the only things that you can change are the future.
Yeah.
The present and the future. And so for me, I'm just doing the best I can with what I have. And I think it's what everybody's doing, right? I mean, I've a bum knee, and like it's very difficult to do the training I used to do, but you know what? I am lucky to be able to do it at all.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome that I can go out and do a national championship. I did the cross country US national championship. Short distance is really not my bag anymore. But I went out there and I rode from last place up into the top 20, flatted, fell out of the top 20, made the cut, didn't get lapped, rode back into 17th. So 17th, not bad for 47 years old. I mean, these kids are like 22. Like, they were like, who is this dude? Yeah, no, it's fun. And for endurance and for especially navigation, trip preparation, things like that, I'm better now than I've ever been. I'm more organized. I'm more patient. I put the routes with the ideas, and I can tell a story, which I think is something that I couldn't do before. There's no way I could hold a camera and manage my hydration and do a race. And now literally I could do a hard race, be in the middle of a pack, and just be talking to the camera, completely riding with one hand, no problem. And yeah, I guess that's what I can do right now. And then maybe when I can't really race anymore, I'll write books, or I'll run a team, or whatever. Or I'll just manage the impossible routes and then make you go and ride one.
With all the things you've done as an athlete, you made a lot of sacrifices. Who were the people that were your biggest supporters that kept you going with all the injuries you mentioned, that kept you going because they knew that you had the passion to do this and they didn't want to see you stop?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, my mom, my grandmother, but first and foremost, my wife, Erin. She's always been by my side with all this, crazy ups and downs. And like, I'm like, trust me, I'll find a sponsor next year. We'll find a team. We'll get back, get it back going. And, there's always those times in which you're like doubting or not sure if you should keep going. And it's been a crazy and wild ride, but yeah, she's been there with me through it, helping me in feed zones, traveling, helping do the website and manage emails, tasks, invoices, and yeah, just getting behind what I do. And sometimes it's not always easy. Sometimes it's not really like an easy thing to work with your partner. That makes it an extra layer of challenge for those that work with their significant other. But it's really, I couldn't have done it without her. You know, it's really allowed us to be able to have two wonderful kids, really well taken care of, well educated, you know, great temperament. And yeah, I don't feel like they've missed out on anything, even though I'm gone for a week at a time. And that's important. I mean, it's super important for me.
When you created Impossible Routes, what was the main mission for it?
To inspire people. You know, really, we've got this, you know, limited time on the planet. And, you know, we all have like huge challenges in our lives, and we'll hit roadblocks, we'll hit, you know, deaths in the family, we'll have self-doubt, we'll have just, you know, when things just line up, three in a row, three bad things in a row happen, and you just feel like, what is the world conspiring against me?
Mm-hmm.
I just want people to know they're not alone. I mean, it's like, at first, you know, we did the episode in Hawaii, Impossible Route Hawaii. It was fun. I was like, hey, you know, there's this route, nobody's done it. You know, starts at the ocean, tops out at 13,400 feet, 70 miles later, goes through volcanic pumice, streams, canyons. Like, let's see if we can do it. But when I stood there, like on top of the world's biggest volcano, you know, there were some things that really resonated so clear to me. Like, it was like, you could hear a pin drop. And I'm like, wow. And a couple things really hit me is that I'm so profoundly lucky to be able to have just done that.
Mm-hmm.
But then also how small our planet is and how fragile it is. Literally, I was standing at the edge of the troposphere, the end of the atmosphere. So it's like an eggshell, thin eggshell that wraps around the entire planet. Like, and there was nothing alive around me. It was all tundra because of the elevation, lack of oxygen. And then the layer below, 4,000 feet below, where the pine trees stopped and the tundra flowers began, that was the very highest that things can grow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tiny, tiny zone. And that's when you kind of realize, wow, I mean, we were really playing with fire when we destroy habitat or we change the atmosphere, you know. So, and traveling to all these remote places all over the world, we've seen this human footprint everywhere. I mean, the middle of Montana, like there are mine tailings and crumbled machines. And I mean, you think you're in the middle of the wilderness, but everywhere we've gone, whether it be the Solitario in Texas, the middle of this crazy volcanic crater, or Death Road in Bolivia, or, you know, there's no spot on this planet. I mean, save for Antarctica, has been, at least thus far, mostly spared. I mean, there's footprints of humankind everywhere. And that's one thing that resonated with me. That's not the purpose of our episode, but really the purpose is to inspire people. It's like, hey, this is stuff we love to do. Actually, it's stuff I do like for fun. Like, I'll like put together a crazy route, ride to the mountains in West Virginia and back, and see if I can do it in 2 days. And, you know, it's a natural extension of what I do and what I like to do. But it's also really one of those things where I think it can reach people. It can say, hey, you know, we're actually doing a route that we know is probably not possible and no one's ever done it. And we have a very good chance of failing,
Mm-hmm.
but we go anyway. I think there's something in that that's really important. Like, when we didn't finish Death Valley, we rode our asses off. It's a 7-day route, goes from south to north, the entire length of Death Valley and Mojave Desert, basically from the border of Mexico and Yuma all the way up to like the equivalent distance of San Francisco. Like, it's a massive 750-mile route with like 120,000 feet of climbing or something, pushing the bike through sand and cactus and no water. It's just terrible. Like, it's nuts. But we, you know, get to this like 5th day and we knew we're not going to make it. And I had the Garmin InReach, and I'm like, you know, texting the team to come pick us up. We're done. We're out. And it was that moment I was like, this, we're quitters, you know, we like didn't make it, you know, we're like loading the bikes into the truck at like 11:30 at night, having ridden as far as we could with no water for hours, you know, and it's kind of like there's thoughts of failure, there's thoughts of like we didn't do it. And but then I thought, you know, we set out, we did our best, and that's all that counts. And I
Yep.
think when you look at like the challenges we face in life, you just need to step up and you just need to swing, you know, and get those fears out of your head, get those moments of doubt out of your head. Because you know what? If you try your best, it doesn't matter. You just, you know, swing for the fence, give it your best, do what you can, and keep moving every day.
Out of all the places you've done an impossible route, which one is the most memorable one so far?
Most memorable, I'd say Hawaii, the origin story, the episode that we did in Hawaii, which is the Impossible Route. That's the name of the route, and we borrowed the name for the entire series since it just, I don't know, worked. That one was really cool because, you know, I was the athlete, you know, this retired tough guy pro, and then this YouTuber, you know, I knew he was going to get a lot of views and it was going to be a great video to produce, but I also knew he probably wasn't going to make it. It just, he was struggling, you know, once we hit like 9,000 feet, he was having trouble breathing and he was like having all these doubts. He lays down on the ground. He's like almost tapped out, like this close. And then he thought, you know, what's it going to be like to look back at yesterday and say, I quit,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And he came up with this concept of the future me, you know, what would the future me feel like if I quit now? And he kind of talked himself into just keeping going and just trying, and he made it within 3 minutes of like our cutoff time. So the road closes at sunset. Anybody that's found on the road, they pick them up in a vehicle, bring you down, and you're not allowed to be up there on the road after sunset. So he made it, and it was really cool. It was really a proud moment. He really pushed, but he also did something else that I wasn't expecting. He impressed me, and you know, he's kind of like a, you know, he's kind of, it was a little immature, you know, he's kind of like this social media blowhard, you know, kind of like self-promoting. I'm more like the kind of person naturally that if I do something, like I might talk about it, but I'm not going to like promote it on the internet like it's a press release.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me. It's just, it's not really my style. So he really stepped it up. That was a really neat moment. And I mean, Death Valley also was really fantastic because no one had ridden this route, and it's a very, very, very difficult route over the course of a week. And to see that much desert, I mean, that changes a person. That changes a person. It's like, wow, you know, I can't dump water out of a cup into the sink now. I'm like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to waste that. Give me that.
With doing all these routes, has it made you a better rider in a different way than being an athlete? Has it trained you mentally, physically, emotionally in a different way so that in the future, when you're doing another version of those routes, you're more prepared than you were before?
100%. Yeah, it's mostly mental. You know, the overlap is mostly mental, but physically, I'd never done a 300-mile nonstop ride before. And that's one of the things we did in the West Texas episode. We rode 310 miles, and not a fast 310 miles, like carrying your bike through cactus, like walking down ravines, like going through sand, like pushing up mountains. And that changes your reality.
Mhm.
And you go, holy shit. Like, if I wanted to right now, I could ride to New York City from Central Virginia. That's 300 miles. And then you're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Like, it's like really, it's really kind of a neat thing. You sort of set these self expectations, the glass ceiling we set for ourselves. But the biggest thing the Impossible Routes has taught me is that everybody has another gear.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it's necessity that makes us get there. And so for me, the commitment of doing the Impossible Routes, that's like, okay. I change like when we get a mission and we're like, all right, we're locked and loaded. Here's the route, here's the plan, here's the game, here's the time limit. Like, boom, I am like sharp. I'm, charging my stuff. I'm like just, I don't know, in the mode. Like I am just locked in. Whereas like my natural mode, to be completely honest, is pretty lazy. Like, okay, well, I work for myself, so I can work at like 7 p.m. or I can work at 6 p.m. So if I want to sleep in, I can sleep in. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt anybody as long as I just do the work. So yes, I get pretty lazy. Like I am naturally gonna wake up and want to make some pancakes with bananas and just sit on the back porch and push the commitments farther and farther back, or maybe I'll do that tomorrow. But when I set a commitment, it's that commitment and discipline, because everybody's got motivation problems. I
Yeah.
mean, that means you're human, basically. But it's commitment that sets you to the task. And then it's discipline that keeps you on the rails and makes things happen no matter what. And discipline is something that's very trainable. It starts with like, okay, I am going to go to bed at 10 every night this week. And that's okay. Well, it's easy. Just, put my phone down, read a book. All right. I'm going to bed at 10. But then that discipline can go to, all right, well, I'm going to run 20 minutes or exercise 20 minutes a day before work at 5 a.m. And then that's a commitment. And then you're like, okay. And once you're like, dang, I'm feeling really good. I'm like getting out the door on time. I go to work. I feel like $1,000,000. I've lost 5 pounds in the last couple of weeks. Then all of a sudden, that discipline can go to something else. Hey, I'm going to save $100 a week. Like, and this just sort of snowballs into being a mental juggernaut and being able to say, I have a steering wheel to my life. I can take this where I want to go with it, and nothing's going to stop me. Like, that is really a hallmark of the successful people I've met. They don't know. No, they don't know. It might not happen. Like, it's just really fascinating, the mindset of people that like are high achievers, and that mindset, everybody can get there once they start small. I'm not kidding. It's like small steps, and then you're suddenly sucked into that feeling of commitment and success. You know what I mean? And I think it's really cool. It's really something the Impossible Routes has taught me as well. And that has really transformed mentally and physically. It's been a big transformation.
With
Yeah.
Impossible Routes, has there ever been a new idea that has sparked in your mind that you're like, I really want to pursue this eventually in the future? Or do you feel that you want to focus on one task at a time and really develop it and really grow it to how far you can get it?
Well, I feel like it's had several phases, the initiation phase, then like, okay, mastery phase of like what we're currently doing. And I think we hit that pretty well last year. Like, we were able to nail a really incredible episode in France. We had a good shooting team. We've got about 8 different people we work with, maybe like 12, 15 people when you account like accounting and like graphic design and folks at Canyon that help us. But yeah, it's been in the back of my head, hey, we want to get new characters on the show. And honestly, like, we've got this awesome platform. We've got sponsors like Canyon. And I think it's really neat to open it up and to say, hey, we've evolved, and Tyler has gone from zero to hero. I mean, he's gone from local racer and YouTuber to successful ultra endurance rider. In fact, he won the U.S. National Ultra Championships 500-mile race across Oregon just last week. So he's no beginner anymore. And that was a really fun part of the story. I'm like trying to teach him and show him and inspire him and like, teach him these mental tricks. But now he's getting pretty locked in. He's pretty good. So that's why we're going to do our Sierra Eliminator. I'm not sure if that's going to be the name of it. It's going to be Sierra Eliminator or like some version of that, Sierra Challenge. I don't know. But we're going to have open casting call for our next episode, in which we have applicants, submit a resume. They're like, hey, I've got a, illustrious background doing adventure racing, not really a mountain biker or road cyclist, but I want to jump in there. They might be a really good candidate, or it might be someone that's really, really good on social media, that's very entertaining, it's funny, also an athlete. They might be a good mix. Or maybe it's who knows, but we're going to have this on the 16th and 17th of October, roughly, and it's going to be really fun. And Tyler and I get to step back. So we're going to ride the course. We've made the course. It's going to have all these pitfalls and challenges. So it's kind of like a video game. And I want to see if these people can get through it, see if they can make it. And that's going to be fun. And for a change, we won't have to like destroy ourselves, Some of these, we get pretty deep into the hurt box and, we really push ourselves to, pretty deep level.
How long is a recovery for you? Like
all depends. I went, the truth be told, I had a really, really good day at Telluride for our episode. The Telluride Hell Ride is a freaking nightmare of a route. I mean, it's at like 12,000, 13,000 feet, rubble, a lot of it's hiking. It was just hideous. I mean, stupid route. I'm not going to spoil it for you whether we made it or not. You have to watch the episode. But the next day, I had to move. I just had my coffee. I was like awake, and I was like, I got to get out and like move a little bit. So I went for a little jog, and like I was like really surprised. It didn't feel too bad. Typically for me, I start to feel good after about a week. Like we dig pretty deep into the hole. It creates some muscle damage sometimes, and what we do is not always healthy. It's a little borderline. Usually about a week. Yeah.
When you're not mountain biking, sometimes our listeners like to learn even more about our guests. What do you like to do for fun that maybe people don't know that you like to do?
Well, we just got a cockapoo, which is like a cocker spaniel with a poodle mix. His name is Woody. He's the cutest thing you ever seen. Playing with the kids, Conrad and Beatrix, we like to go fishing, and I think a lot of people will probably be surprised to hear I could do something sedentary, but I enjoy that. I like doing trail work. So a lot of the single track mountain bike trails, I mean, all of them need a tremendous amount of maintenance, or when you create them, they're very, very laborious. If you're making a really nice purpose-built trail with berms and rocks and features. And so I really enjoy doing trail work and things like that. And I like reading. I kind of dig the history books, and it's a big part of the research for some of these episodes. It's forced me to learn more about the world, and to better understand the past is to better understand the future and to better navigate the things you're going to see. And so it's been really cool to read a bunch of books and kind of dig into that. And so in the off season, that's kind of like when I write the episodes and read the books and kind of dig into the lore, and like get the nitty gritty of like the old railroad tunnels that used to go under the Appalachian Mountains, or the old military roads. We want to do this episode in Italy called Strada Militare, and it's all the military roads that were built the early 1900s and late 1800s, and just crazy border roads up on the Alps. like tunnels and crazy road works and ramparts, and really pretty fascinating history behind all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of dig that history element, and yeah, just anything outdoors, some hiking, some, I don't know. I really don't have a whole lot of hobbies. Not a whole lot of hobbies.
Has your kids gotten involved with mountain biking where you guys can do it as a family?
Yeah, we can go on a family bike ride now. We actually, I don't think we've done a family mountain bike ride in a while. Because I mean, Beatrix is, my daughter's 9 and my son is 14, so he's like able to go and thrash pretty good. And my wife is an avid rider. But it's work. It's kind of like, let's go get in the canoe, do something else.
Something different.
Yeah, something a little different. But yeah, it's fun, and yeah, Beatrix has gotten really into riding her mountain bike, and she really enjoys riding, which is really cool. And yeah, I mean, I think it's important not to push them towards it. So it's like, hey, if they want to get a new bike, I'll be like, all right, we can find you a new bike. I'll make sure that they have as much of it as they want, but also I don't want to push. I see a lot of parents like push their kids too much, and you want to inspire them and you want to push them a little bit. You just want to like get that, get the wheels turning, that you can do something, and having a focus is important. And so like, my son's been cross country running and gets good grades in school, is on the Junior Honor Society. And yeah, I mean, I don't care if it's volleyball or whatever. It'd be really awesome if it was mountain biking, but we just went to the gym today for the first time, and it was really fun, just to do a little workout in there, kind of show him what I do. I really don't do a whole lot in the gym, just like 2 days a week of like maintenance work, but it's so cool. Like, it was really fun. And who knows, maybe we'll do a little bit more of that.
The final question I'll ask you, for someone that's listening to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
Never give up. I think that persistence is the most important thing. Again, like I said, I love doing what I do, and that's helped, because even when things seem to be at a roadblock, keep going. You got to keep going, and you have to also know when something's, you have to walk away from it. That's a really wise thing to do. But most things take way more effort than you think. And there's a certain breakthrough point, and you don't know where it is. It's kind of like behind a curtain, and it might be one more effort, or it might be 100 more efforts to get there. So I guess that is, you have to believe in the process, trust the process.
Well, Jeremiah, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Well, anybody who's looking to find out more, check out my website, jeremiahbishop.com, or even better, check out theimpossible.route.com for more on the inspiring documentary series starring myself and the vegan cyclist.